Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see what Trump has done worldwide. He went ahead and went to the middlemen of where the money was coming from. He didn't go to the source because the source is the Federal Reserve. If he went ahead and shut down the source, the entire economic structure would implode. So Trump, he needed a way to shut down the deep state players. And what better way to shut it down than the middle source of the money? And when I say middle source, I mean USAID, the NGOs, the 14 computers in the Treasury, the laundering of money across the world. And this is what Trump has done. He shut down the deep state money, and this money was filtered, sent to many other places, and laundered in all different places to fund their operation. And like we said from the very, very beginning, the deep state system is not just in this country. It's not just a couple of politicians. It's not just Obama. It's not just Hillary Clinton. It is everywhere. And they've been developing this system for a very long time. And they've been using the money from the Federal Reserve to fund everything. Now, they never had to worry about paying it back because that was up to the American people. They were going to pay back all the money. They were going to use the money to create their system. And their system was made up of putting certain leaders into position. Their system was made up of creating terrorism. Their system was made up of controlling the oil prices. Their system was made up of pushing wokeism. Their system is made up of installing corrupt people or criminals into our government to basically take over our governments. Their system was created to pay Antifa, the foot soldiers, to basically push their agendas, not just in this country, but around the world. Their system was to maintain control everywhere and change the countries. Everything that you're seeing out in Europe with all the illegals going into those countries, where do you think the money's coming from? It's coming from here in the United States. And what Trump has done now by shutting down USAID, by shutting down the NGOs, by exposing the money laundering, by doing all of this, he's setting the world free. Now, if you don't have the money, it's going to be very, very difficult in paying these criminals to run for office. And it's going to be very, very difficult because you have to pay them to stay in office. And what we're seeing around the world right now, especially in Central America, South America, you're starting to see that the leadership is starting to change. And when you start to look in other places, you can see that the deep state players are having a very difficult time funding their operations. And you can see that their power is being eroded a little bit at a time. And it's becoming much, much more difficult for them to operate. Now, what will they still have? They will still have the propaganda networks. Absolutely. Will they still have certain individuals in D.C.? Absolutely, because we can't get rid of those people until there's an election, unless criminal charges are brought up against them and they're removed from their position. But again, most likely we're going to have to run the elections. But as we're running the elections, they're going to have to pay for the cheating system. And it's going to be very, very difficult to pay for the cheating system because the money is basically disappearing. Now, they're putting everything they have into California because, again, they need to keep L.A. The governorship, I think, at this point, they're like, okay, we can't throw out Hilton. We can't throw out Pratt and show that nobody won because it would look very, very suspicious. So they decided to keep Hilton in the race, and they basically used everything that they had to remove Pratt. Now, what's very interesting about this is Pratt keeps saying, listen, we still have time. What happens if there were votes that were kept back and they were waiting for the deep state players to cheat like they're doing right now, and all of a sudden you see other votes? Now, what are they going to do? They're going to say that Pratt cheated? Because that'd be very difficult, because that would open up a can of worms, wouldn't it? But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. But we can see already with A.G. Blanche, he's already letting us know that charges are incoming right now, and there are certain people that are going to be charged for manipulating the elections. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. But you have to remember, this all needed to be done because, remember, Trump is investigating, his team is investigating Fulton County, he's also investigating Maricopa County. And what the fake news was going to do, and what the deep state players, the Ds, and everyone else was going to do was saying, hey, You know what? That happened back in the past. Yeah, that was 2020, but things are changed. Those were just glitches, one off things. And yeah, today the elections aren't run like that. You see, Trump needed to bring this into present day. He needed people to see this firsthand. And this way, people understand that it never went away. They're using the same exact tactics. They're using the same mail in ballots. They're using what they used back in 2020, what they used back in 2018, what they used back in 2016. They've never, ever changed. All they did is they went from a limited amount of mail ins going all the way back to 2016. And yes, they used illegals back then, where they went all out just to beat Trump's people. Now, think about why they had to go all out to beat Trump's people, because they don't get votes. They're dependent on the illegals. They're dependent on fake ballots. They're dependent on cheating. And when the country is no longer with you, you need to cheat more and more and more and more. And eventually, all the votes you're getting are just coming from cheating. That's it. That's what people are experiencing right now. And people are going to understand that the elections have been rigged for a very long time. But you can see every step of the way, Trump knows exactly what they're doing. He knows exactly what they've been doing, and he needs to present it to the people. Because remember, he has the classified information. He knows what they did. The only way most of the people, the majority, I should say, are going to accept this is if they see an investigation, if they see how they did it, if they see that it was followed by the rule of law, and they can compare what happened in 2020 to what is happening now. This is how people are going to be convinced that, yes, they rigged the elections. And people are going to see this very, very soon. The other thing that they're going to see very, very soon is a deal with Iran, because I do believe that is now incoming. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but you have to remember everything that we're witnessing with Trump right now with Iran, it's all about leverage. Remember, if he's in negotiations trying to make a deal, when you make a deal, what do you want? You want as much leverage as possible. And every step of the way in deal making, you want to show that person or the country that you're making the deal with is that you have all the leverage. And that is exactly what Trump is doing. Now, what's very interesting is that a helicopter went down in the Strait of Hormuz. The helicopter was doing a patrol, and the helicopter went down. Now, what's very interesting, it was first reported as a crash. Now, if Iran actually shot it down with a missile, you know they love propaganda. You know that they would be reporting this all over the place, just like they reported that, hey, a missile hit the USS Lincoln, but it never did. They would be reporting this all over the place. They'd be having a field day. But what's very interesting is that Iran did not take responsibility right off the bat for this. Trump then put out a truth letting everyone know that, yes, the helicopter was shot down and we will be responding. Now, think about why he said this. It's about leverage. Then Iran came out and said, well, it might have collided with a drone and it might have been a mistake. Now, think about it. Does that sound like Iran in the past? Because remember, just weeks ago, they were saying how they're going to hit every base. Just weeks ago, they were telling everyone how strong they are. Now, they're saying it might have been a mistake that their drone hit the helicopter? That's interesting. That shows you that their leverage is gone, because they would have never have done this in the past. Because, again, they know what Trump and the U.S. are capable of. Now, if Trump goes ahead and he does strike at Iran, he's going to hit strategic sites, maybe where they build their missiles, their air defense system. Do I think they're going to hit leadership? No, most likely not. So I do believe, just to show them, look, I can hit you at any time. The weapons that you think you have hidden, they're not hidden. Now, he might just be making the threat to force Iran to come out and say it was a mistake, showing the world that he has the leverage and Iran no longer does, which has already happened. And we'll have to see how this all plays out. And we need to remember something very important. Trump is the one who closed the Strait of Hormuz. He has kept it closed this entire time. Use simple logic. Why would Iran close the Strait of Hormuz and not allow ships to get their oil. Does that make any sense? No. Trump has always had control of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran never did. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about what's going on with the illegals right now, because we could see that the D's are up to their old tricks once again. And it seems that New Jersey Governor Mickey Sherrill, she is now spending $20 million in tax dollars to prevent foreign criminals from being deported. So let's see. Democrats put America last, and those people that are not citizens, those people that are in this country illegally, those people that are infiltrating our country, those people are first. This should tell you everything you need to know right there. And they're using your hard-earned money to keep these people in this country. Because remember, it's infiltration from within. And that is exactly what we're experiencing. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Secretary Markwayne Mullin decided to allow Governor Mickey Sherrill into the Delaney facility. And this is what Governor Mickey Sherrill put out. After being denied access for weeks, I was finally allowed into Delaney Hall, but what I received was a closely controlled and limited tour of the facility. That is unacceptable. I was not allowed to meet or speak directly with the detainees, which continues to raise serious questions about the real conditions of the facility and the treatment of those being held there. I will continue to push to speak with the detainees directly. They deserve to be heard, and the public deserves answers. Well, Markwayne Mullin decided to respond to her and said the following. I'm not surprised you would say something like this, Governor Sherrill. On June 8th, I personally granted you access to the facility as an act of good faith, despite you having exactly zero federal oversight authority. Of course, you're still trying to turn Delaney Hall into a political football for the radical left. You were told before you went in, you would not have the ability to speak to the detainees. This is a federal facility. Governor, you are not federally elected. I suggest you and your health inspectors spend more time at your New Jersey State detention facilities. Delaney Hall has 2 times more medical personnel per detainee than New Jersey State Prison and at least 2 times as much square footage. Detainees are also 2 times more likely to die in New Jersey State custody. He continued, Governor Sherrill won't tell you New Jersey State prisons face systematic health code violations. Over 8,000 grievances are filed annually by inmates. Northern State Prison, untreated flooding, sewage, and wastewater sewage and lack of temperature control. Garden State Youth Correctional Facility receives citations for filthy conditions with standing water and rodent infestation. New Jersey State Prison, contaminated site surrounded by 6 other toxic sites within a half a mile. 6 call requests also face major delay response times in New Jersey State Prison. I'd encourage Governor Sherrill to focus on her own backyard and put the safety of her own constituents above illegal aliens. Boom. Again, you can see everything the deep state players are trying to do. It's not working. And every time they try to make a really big deal out of the detention centers, it doesn't work. Because once again, you can see they don't have control of the narrative. Now, maybe going back in time when all you had was the fake news and you didn't have social media because social media was controlled by the deep state players, yes, this would have worked. This time around, it is not working whatsoever. No one is buying what they're selling. And every time they try to push this, it's debunked in a matter of seconds. And think about what Kash Patel is doing. He is rounding up criminals left and right. He's destroying the pedo networks. And now he is pushing Operation Spring Cleaning. This is a 3-month nationwide enforcement surge that produced more than 1,100 arrests, nearly 1,000 firearm seizures, and over 2,700 pounds of drugs taken off the streets. Now, think about it. The deep state, the fake news, the D's, they keep pushing gun control, but that is gun control for law-abiding citizens. And the criminals are allowed to keep their guns because they don't go to an FFL dealer. They don't give them their IDs. They don't have checks run on them. They get their weapons on the black market. So if you go ahead and you remove the weapons from citizens and you allow the criminals to have the weapons, criminals run the city. Wait, isn't that what we're seeing right now? And what is Kash Patel doing right now? He's now removing the illegal firearms, the drugs, and everything else from each of these cities. The operations were conducted across the country, including Charlotte, Chicago, Dallas, Houston, Philadelphia, and Sacramento. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of this because, again, his job is to keep the people of this country safe from terrorists, from criminals, from those people that might do us harm. And he's doing just that. Remember, this is FBI 2.0. FBI 1.0 protected the criminal syndicate. FBI 2.0 is protecting the people of this country and cleaning up everything the deep state players have done. Remember, they wanted the criminals on the streets. They wanted these criminals to do us harm. They wanted us to suffer. This is what they actually wanted. And you could see that out in Northern Ireland, well, they have illegals, they have criminals roaming the street. I mean, you can see that in the UK, you can see it in France, you can see it in Germany, you can see it all over the place. But in Ireland, what happened out there? Well, you had an asylum seeker. He had I think it was like a Home Depot typo or a Stanley knife or something like that, and basically tackled an individual and tried to cut off the individual's head. Now, this isn't illegal in this country. It's absolutely horrific. And once again, you can see that the bystanders that were watching this saying he's trying to cut off his head. And again, this is what the deep state players want. They want these type of people in our country. And in the United States, what is Trump and his administration doing? They're cleaning it all up. They're removing the bad actors. They're removing the terrorists. They're deporting all of these people. But again, the UK, Ireland, France, Germany, they're not there yet because once again, you can see they're still following the agenda. And of course, the fake news came out with saying, oh, the person was stabbed and, they never mentioned that his head was trying to be cut off or anything like that. And of course, this is what the fake news, it covers for the illegals coming in because they're part of the criminal syndicate. But like we said from the very, very beginning, we can see that the world now is changing, especially out in Central America and South America. And you can see more and more people are going up against those individuals that have been installed. And how have they been installed? Well, they use a lot of the laundered money to get these people elected, keep them installed, and make sure that there's no opposition. But it seems that's all changing right now. We see Eyal Jacobi put this out and said, Keiko Fujimori, the likely next president of Peru, tells Colombian President Gustavo Petro, the former guerrilla fighter, to keep his red nose out of Peru's affairs. Very interesting. So we're starting to see a change right now. And when you start to look at it, you could see that ever since USAID was defunded and thousands of NGO contracts were canceled, left-wing parties are losing in Central and South America. David Asman says, as someone who covered the region for dozens of years for the Wall Street Journal and reported in astonishment how even under conservative President Ronald Reagan, USAID was funding socialist projects in Latin America, I can assure you that this is 100% accurate. Ed Wokeness says, Latin America since USAID defunding. Cast, far-right wins in Chile. Paz, far-right wins in Bolivia. Fujimori, far-right wins in Peru. Nobo, far-right wins in Ecuador. Asfur, far-right wins in Honduras. Fernandez, far-right wins in Costa Rica. So you could see that since the money is drying up, the power is drying up. Very, very interesting. So when you start to look at the entire world, you could see that the money that came out of the Federal Reserve went into the government, went into USAID, went into the NGOs. This is what was funding the system worldwide. Peter Sayong, PhD, said, I'm starting to think the entire global left is your tax dollars. It totally is. Joe Lane says, the entire house of cards propped up by American taxpayers is now crashing down. Without money, they have no power. Money flow disruption. Our entire hemisphere is being set free from the cabal control. A new dawn approaches, a new golden age is coming into view. And that's absolutely true because without the money, you can't fund the installed people. You can't fund the operation. You can't fund Antifa. You can't fund the terrorists. You can't fund everything that you've seen in the past. It's all starting to break down. And it's going to get worse and worse as time goes on for the deep state players. Because again, as the money dries up, they lose power. They're getting weaker and weaker as time goes on. Now, am I saying that they're at their weakest point right now? No. Remember, Trump shut off the spigot. He went to the middle layer where the money came from the Federal Reserve. Congress requested the money and then started to funnel it into the different agencies. So Trump shut it down in all different agencies. He's actually removing the people in the agencies because that's actually what ran the deep state system. The people in the agencies that they created, the bloated government. Because again, it didn't matter who the elected officials were. The agencies, those people in there, they were calling the shot. Remember, they're not elected. And they say there, and they put protection around it so these people couldn't be fired. Trump has removed the protection, and now he can remove a lot of these people, which is very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is I do believe Trump is almost ready to make a deal. Now, why isn't he making a deal? Because he's not getting everything that he wants. He's talking to them, but they're not taking a knee. They're not bending to what he wants. So in order to make Iran bend to what you want, you have to basically get more leverage. You have to show them that, no, you're not in control. We're in control. And we will show you how much control we have. Now, what's very interesting about this is that the Strait of Hormuz was closed by President Trump. Think about it logically. Why in the world would Iran close the Strait of Hormuz, where they're not allowing ships in to their ports to get the oil? Why would they do that to themselves? So those people that are out there saying, oh, Iran still has control of the Strait of Hormuz. Really? So they're basically making it so they have no sales, that the oil wells have to be shut down. They're losing millions and millions of dollars. They're in control and they're keeping it shut because they want to destroy themselves. Or does Trump have control of the Strait of Hormuz with this big, powerful Navy sitting right outside saying, yeah, no ship is going in. No ship is going to Iran. You're getting nothing. So once again, Trump has always had control over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, when he says he wants Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz, that's a power play. Because again, he's saying we will make a deal, and as soon as it's done, they will open it. Saying that he has the control. Since we made the deal, they're doing what I say. You will open it. That's what he's doing. So everyone out there saying Trump has no control over this, he doesn't have control of the Strait of Hormuz, think about it logically. If Iran still had control, they'd be letting in all the ships to go to their ports. And they'd be filling up with oil, and they'd be leaving. China would be doing it. But they're not. Which means Trump and team has control. Now, what's very interesting is an Apache helicopter crashed, and that's the report that's coming out right now, even though Trump in his post, and we'll read that in a sec, saying that it was shot down. But I do believe he's doing this on purpose in a specific way to actually gain more leverage. Now, they're saying that the Apache crashed near the Strait of Hormuz. It looks like the pilots are okay, and they were just patrolling the area. So this is what Trump put out. I have just been informed by our great military that last night the Iranians shot down one of our highly sophisticated Apache helicopters while patrolling over the Strait of Hormuz. There were 2 pilots involved. Both are safe and uninjured. Nevertheless, the United States must, of necessity, respond to this attack. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So the U.S. Army AH-64 Apache went down, crashed near the Strait of Hormuz, specifically off the coast of Oman, on the evening of June 8th while on routine patrol over the regional waters. Both crew members, pilot and gunner, were rescued safely within about 2 hours by U.S. Navy Air Force Army 82nd Airborne and naval drone assets. They're uninjured. So let me ask you something. If you can go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money. They got ahead of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today, a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. Silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the massive data centers powering our digital world. While demand keeps growing, it's still affordable enough that the average American can start accumulating it right now. That's why investors are turning to silver to protect against inflation and own one of the world's most important strategic resources. Don't be the person who looks back in 10 years and says, I saw it coming, I just didn't act. Go to x22gold.com and learn how easy it is to own physical silver. That is x22gold.com. And if you mention X22 Report, Noble Gold will send you a 1/10 ounce gold coin as a thank you gift when you open a new qualified account. So go to x22gold.com or click the link in the description. Own the metal the future depends on. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Cause is still under investigation. CENTCOM has not said it was shut down. They're looking at possibilities including mechanical failure, hostile action, Iranian fire, or maybe something else. Iran, as soon as this happened, didn't come out, and you think this would be a great opportunity for Iran to come out and say, listen, our powerful missiles took down the Apache helicopter, but they didn't, which is very odd. They've done it with everything else, but this time they didn't come out and do that. They didn't even have AI videos. They had nothing, which is very, very interesting. And then we had Iran's foreign minister come out and say, foreign forces in proximity to our territory are at constant risk on account of their own human errors, plane accidents, or potentially being caught in crossfire. To reduce risk, best solution is for them to leave. We prefer language of diplomacy, but speak other languages too. So they didn't say they shot it down. They're saying that maybe a drone or something happened and it was an accident. So think about that for a second. Now, Trump is framing this in a way that we must get some type of revenge or we must respond to what occurred. Now, as soon as he said that, it seems that the foreign minister decided to come out and let everyone know it was an accident. Now, this seems very, very different from how they used to speak, because they used to speak in a way that, hey, we took it down, we blew him out of the sky, and if you try to come into this area again, we're going to do it again. They didn't do it this time. So did Trump just actually show the world that he has more leverage than them, that they're starting to bend a knee? Maybe just by saying we have to respond, he got his point across. Now, if he does respond, what is he going to do? Now, this reminds me of what he did back in 2020 after an Iranian proxy killed a U.S. contractor and Iran hit a U.S. base. And what did he do? He took out Soleimani, a high-value target. And then there was de-escalation once the message landed, which is very, very interesting. But this time around, a U.S. contractor was not hit, a base was not hit, a helicopter was hit, and the pilots are okay. So is Trump going to go after some high-value target like Soleimani? Most likely not at this point. Maybe he will, but I personally don't think so. I do believe that the response, if he's going to respond, will be swift, but not an all-out war, of course. Trump's pattern is maximum pressure, with surgical force to avoid quagmires. So what will he hit? Some of the targets might be IRGC missile batteries, radar installations, or launch sites directly involved in the downing. This removes immediate threat to U.S. aircraft. Second option might be IRGC command centers, drone bases, or naval bases. Symbolic but painful hits on regime military. And basically, just it shows the Iranian regime that Trump is in control. And I do believe he'll make it, if he does strike, he'll make it a very big deal that, listen, I know you think these missiles were hitting. I know you think these were in the mountain, but we hit them hard and now they're removed. So we know where they are and you can't hide them from us. Now, he might do that, or maybe he got what he wanted from that post from Iran because, again, they've taken a different path right now. And what's very interesting is Trump let everyone know that Iran peace deal may be possible in 2 or 3 days. Now, think about it. Trump has been speaking to Iran, and we know what's going on. I do believe we probably could figure this one out. Trump wants certain things: no nuclear weapons, Strait of Hormuz open. They will not have weaponry in the Strait of Hormuz, and they will surrender. Now, of course, Iran doesn't want to do that. So what do you do to convince them that you have no leverage? What do you do during the negotiations? You show them that you have all the leverage. And this is what Trump has been doing every step of the way. He's showing them we have the leverage. You don't believe me? I'm going to give you a little bit of taste. We're going to shut down your money if you decide to hit the Middle Eastern bases. So you won't have the money as a bargaining chip. Oh, wait, you don't believe us in that? Okay. We're then going to hit some other targets, and we're not going to do it. Israel's going to do it. And then I'll tell Israel to back off. Okay, now you believe that. See? Now you understand that I have complete and utter control over Israel. Oh, wait, you think that you still have more leverage? Well, we're going to respond to this accident, and we're going to take out some of your weaponry. Weaponry, maybe that's hidden. And we'll show you that we know exactly where everything is. And Trump is showing them every step of the way, we have all the leverage. And this is why I do believe they're starting to speak in a different way. Because again, they didn't come out with their propaganda this time around, which is very, very interesting. But let's see how this all plays out. But I do believe Trump is getting very, very close, because he doesn't say these things unless he's close. So yes, there might be bullet points where he got maybe, I'm just going to make up a number. Out of 5 of them, he got already 3, 2 more to go. And this is why he has to continually use the leverage against them to show them you're not in control here. The deep state's not coming to rescue you. They have no control anymore. They're not in control of the situation. Remember, you have to remember, the deep state players have been protecting Iran for a very long time. They believe the deep state player still has power. They do not. And Trump is showing them they are no longer in power. And I will show you every step of the way that they're not coming to your rescue. You might be hearing things on the fake news. You might be hearing things, but it's meaningless because they don't have the power. And I'll show you they don't have the power. And this is what he's doing to get what he wants. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is the deep state players, they are trying to push everything they possibly have to actually mess the midterms up and mess the economy up. Now, think about this for a second. We know during COVID, what did they do? They tried to down the economy. They tried to destroy it because Trump was making the economy look pretty darn good during his time in office there, even though he was playing within a private West central bank system. So what did they do? Well, remember what George Soros says in the beginning of that year in January of 2020? Well, the market looks very, very overheated, and it looks like it's about to come down. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and they started to basically sell off the stocks, trying to bring down the stock market, but that didn't work. They tried to keep the economy closed, but Trump opened it. Everything they tried to do didn't work. So what do they had to do? They had to go all out and use the mail-in ballots. They have always used it, but they had to use it to the extreme to cheat in the election. And again, think about all the things they did to try to manipulate the elections to try to bring down the economy. They're going to do the same thing right now. I mean, you heard of the new screw worm with meat? Well, ivermectin pretty much takes care of that problem. Cattle ranchers have been using this for quite a while. We'll be talking about that in just a sec. And they're also trying to use Ebola. And once again, I wonder if hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, because it is a virus, I wonder if it takes care of Ebola, or maybe hydroxychloroquine takes care of Ebola. That's very, very interesting. But of course, Big Pharma, they're not going to use that drug to see if it works. I don't think ivermectin has ever been tested with Ebola, which is very, very interesting. Now, chloroquine has, but who knows if they did the test correctly, because again, they told us this was a horse dewormer pill type of thing, and it only used on horses, and they lied to the American people. So think about what they're doing, and think about what's coming up, and think about what they've done before. Nicholas Hultro put this out, and he's pointing to a political article that says, how do you stop Ebola at the World Cup? Multiple agencies and hospitals just war-gamed Ebola and MERS outbreaks specifically for the World Cup beginning in 3 days. The National Special Pathogen System just simulated a MERS outbreak emerging from the tournament. New York City Health just ran an Ebola drill. Remember Event 201 right before COVID? Hmm, that's interesting. Are they doing the same exact thing? Maybe, maybe not. But again, you know they're going to continue to push this. They tried the hantavirus. What happened to that? Oh, that just disappeared. No one was buying that one. So they went to Ebola. Isn't it amazing how both of them just started up right before the midterms? And then we have the New World screwworms. And you can see they're trying to push this because you have to remember Trump went after the meat packing industry where he said he was going to lower prices. And now they're saying, ooh, meat prices might go up and it might hurt the economy. Well, the timing of that is very, very interesting. But Tony Saruga says ivermectin kills New World screwworms in both humans and animals. As New World screwworms emerge in Texas and New Mexico, the evidence suggests ivermectin may be one of the most effective defenses in both animals and humans. And that is absolutely true. The FDA issued an emergency use authorization in February 2026 for ivermectin as an over-the-counter preventative for cattle at high risk. It was based on 12 field study in South America showing 97% protection against NWS infestation. A single injection kills young larvae before they burrow deeper and provide 10 to 21 days of protection. The older studies from 1997 noted ivermectin was less complete than doramectin in controlled tests, but current FDA action and field data support its use as an effective tool. Ranchers and officials have publicly noted ivermectin as a practical treatment option alongside the main eradication strategy. So that is very, very interesting. So is this a non-starter? It's starting to seem that way. I mean, they're going to push it, but I don't think it's going to work. I don't think any of these things are going to work because I don't think the people are going to buy it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we come to find out, if they do try to push, like, say, Ebola, which is a virus, I wouldn't be surprised if people start to realize, wait a minute, ivermectin cures Ebola? They could have had this cure a long time ago and nobody was using it? That'd be interesting. Because remember, it's just a virus, just like all the other viruses. These are antiviral medications. Very interesting. Now, the other thing we could see, the deep state players, they're up to their old tricks once again. They're trying to delay. And now we have a federal judge appointed by Barack Obama. He has overturned a proclamation by the Trump administration that required a $100,000 fee for employers seeking new H-1B visa applications. And this is coming from Leo Sorokin. All these judges are corrupt, and you know what's going to happen. They're going to appeal all these cases, and Trump and team, they're going to win like they always do. Remember, all they have left right now with the judiciary is to delay as best they possibly can. Think about it. What are they delaying? They're delaying Trump from destroying the system that they created. That's what they're delaying. This is why they don't want Trump to succeed. And if they can delay it as long, as long as they possibly can, maybe going up to the midterms, they're hoping that he won't have the ability to destroy what they put into place, because everything that he's put into place is destroying what they have done. And they're trying to stop it every step of the way. Is that going to work? Absolutely not. And you can see that the entire money laundering system is now coming to a screeching halt. And it seems that J.D. Vance is now referring Tim Walz to the U.S. Department of Justice. So this is going to set a precedent across the country. Eric Doherty put this out and said, Vice President J.D. Vance has referred the Tim Walz complicity and fraud to the U.S. Department of Justice for criminal investigation. Walz and Keith Ellison knew about fraud for 6 years, and they did nothing about it. Bring on the prosecutions. Vance says, we actually referred this particular case to the Department of Justice for a full criminal investigation. We're not going to do what the Biden administration did and make judgments of the law before all the facts are in. But here's what's particularly troubling about this to me. You had people within Governor Walz's office who were saying, you know what? This looks like fraud. It looks like these illegal immigrants are doing something that's very shady. And then you had people who shut them down, who shut these whistleblowers down and said, you're a racist. You're a xenophobe for asking questions about where taxpayer money is going. And what that means to me is that clearly people weren't taking fraud seriously. Whether it rises to the level of criminal violation, we're going to investigate it. And of course, if it does rise to that level, we're going to prosecute. We have to. And that's absolutely true. And you can see that once again, this is going to set a precedent across the country because if they're doing it there, they're doing it in all the other states, which means mayors, governors, attorney generals, whoever's involved, whoever knew about it, they can be brought up on charges. So let's see how this all plays out. Trump, slowly but surely, is shutting down their entire system. And now he has sent A.G. Blanche's nomination to the Senate. Now, remember, we reported about this. This kind of traps the deep state players because, again, he's an acting AG right now. His time ran out in October 29th. So when he sends this to the Senate, it resets the clock. He has another 210 days from this point on to be acting AG. Now, if the Senate doesn't take up his nomination, he stays as acting AG indefinitely. Now, if the Senate does take it up and he can't get through the confirmation process, he still has the 210 days. Now, when you start to look at the Senate, you can see I don't think they're going to go all out in confirming him right now. Because once again, you can see a lot of the other nominees, they are completely and utterly delayed. And I don't think at this point in time, I don't think they're going to take it up. I think most likely they're instructed not to go ahead with the confirmations. Because again, if you're dealing with a corrupt Senate and you know that maybe half of your nominees will not be confirmed, why go through the process? Keep them waiting until we have the House and Senate. Because if we don't get the House and Senate, all of this is meaningless. Because again, what's going to happen? They're going to try to impeach President Trump, which means Trump can't go ahead with the rest of the plan. I know people think, oh, Trump came into office, he's the president, so everything is fine. If we do not get the House and Senate, he cannot complete the mission, and which means most of his executive orders will not be codified into law. He will not be able to go to source of the funding, which is the Federal Reserve, and he will not be able to take down the deep state players because they will be going after him, which means everything they did can be reversed very, very easily. And this is why the midterms are so important. This is why the deep state players are planning to do something during the midterms. Now, either they're going to cheat, they're going to manipulate it, they're going to have riots because they can't cheat. But you can see every step of the way, what is Trump doing? He's mitigating their cheating, making it more and more difficult for them to use their old cheating system. And I think this is why he pretty much went ahead and said, you know something? Yes, I'm calling for the Save America Act, but let's not just pass it just yet. Let's wait for the very, very end. So this way, they can't create some type of tactic to use against it. This way, we can catch them off guard. Now, even if they don't pass it, he still has the executive order. But we'll see how this all plays out in the end. But we can see there are elections that are happening right now out in Georgia, and Trump put this out in Truth. Early voting is underway in the great state of Georgia, where a highly respected and very popular Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones is running to be our next governor. He is a fantastic person and truly loves the people of Georgia, as do I. As the first member of Georgia State Assembly to endorse Donald J. Trump for president, Burt was strongly committed to my campaign in 2016, 2020, 2024, and worked tirelessly to help us win. He has been with us from the very beginning, and I know his family well, and have seen Burt tested at the most difficult levels and times. He is a warrior, a successful businessman, former SEC championship winning Georgia Bulldogs football player, known for his toughness. And now, as lieutenant governor, Burt has proven he has the courage and wisdom to deliver strong results for the incredible people of the wonderful state and our nation. As your next governor, Burt Jones will fight hard to grow the economy, cut taxes and regulations, promote Made in the USA, champion American energy dominance, keep our border secure, strengthen our military veterans, ensure law and order, advance election integrity, and defend our laws under siege, Second Amendment. Burt Jones has my complete and total endorsement to be the next governor of the wonderful state of Georgia. Early voting ends Friday, June 12th. Election day is Tuesday, June 16th. Get out and vote for Burt. He will never let you down. Absolutely. So we have Georgia. That election's going on. I do believe Burt Jones, well, I think Trump's going to have another win. Now, when we look at California, we can see that the votes are still coming in. And, of course, you know, the fake news, they already say, yes, Ramen Noodles already has second place and Spencer Pratt's out, and we're calling it. So isn't it amazing that they called it when it's not even over? I mean, when Spencer Pratt was in the lead, they didn't call it then. But again, there's still time because they gave themselves 30 something days. Spencer Pratt says, folks, we're dealing with a fraction of percentage point difference. There's still hundreds of thousands of votes outstanding, and LA officials have given us the next 3 weeks to count. Let's get her done. Now, the question is, what happens if Spencer Pratt and others, what happens if they coordinated and they knew the deep state players were going to cheat? What happens if they knew they were going to use all the votes and send them to one person? So this way the people of this country could see how the cheating actually works. What happens if they used a lot of those votes up? And what happens if the rest of the votes that have been held back, what happens if they're for Spencer Pratt? Now, again, I'm just spitballing here right here. But again, he keeps putting out the message saying, patience, just wait. He knew that this was going to happen. We know there's a cheating system. We've seen it before. And again, people just had to see it so you understand how it works. Now, if he all of a sudden has all the votes coming in, maybe some will go into Bass, some will go into Spencer Pratt, they could say he's cheating, but that wouldn't work in their favor because then that would open up an investigation. Because again, we have the MAGA crew saying they're cheating. And if they start to say he's cheating, well, that wouldn't work in their favor because they're the real cheaters. And once again, what happens if something is about to occur? Well, let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Observing Consciousness says, Carolyn Levitt just locked the California fraud template into the national election conversation. California functions as the operational scale model. Universal mail-in ballots moving through fragmented and custody chains, days of rolling vote drops, endless counting windows, weak verification standards, millions of ballots flowing through the system where visibility fractures the moment custody disperses across countries, contractors, facilities, and transport layers. Now connect that to the infrastructure already sitting underneath the system. USPS, GPS, telemetry, barcode custody trails, handheld scanner logs, facility routing data, timestamp sequencing across nationwide logistic networks. Every ballot movement leaves a digital footprint. Every reroute leaves a pattern. Every delay creates a signal. Every batch can be traced statistically. The fight is no longer about whether the system can be manipulated. The fight is over who controls the visibility layers sitting above the movement of the ballots themselves. Who controls custody data controls the audit field. Who controls the audit field controls public reality. California is not the endpoint. California is the template, and the template was built to scale. Absolutely. And yes, everything is going to be traced. Now think about the elections in California. Now, if they actually used a cheating system to override what the people actually wanted, and they pushed Steve Hilton out and they pushed Spencer Pratt out, well, this would be very, very obvious. So they had to do one or the other, and it looks like they decided to use the cheating system against Pratt and leave Steve Hilton alone. So this way they could say, look, there's no cheating whatsoever. Steve Hilton's fine. We'll get him during the midterm race. We'll remove him then. And Spencer Pratt just lost because he didn't have the votes. So this is what they tried to do. But again, is it going to work? Absolutely not. And you can see the deep state players, they're trapped in their entire cheating system. Because you have to remember, there's an investigation going on with Fulton County, Maricopa County. And again, you know, when that evidence comes out, they're going to say, oh, that happened in 2020. Who cares? It was a long time ago. Everything now is changed, and the cheating or whatever happened back then doesn't happen now. This is why it had to happen right now, because now it brings it to present day. Joe Lane says they had to blatantly cheat to remove Pratt from the mayor race. They know that Pratt will beat Bass, and they also know that Pratt will end the fraudulent election system in L.A. They know if they lose control of L.A., they lose control of California. This was predictable and has happened for decades. The difference this time, this is Trump's second term. Everything has changed. All eyes are on California, and the table has been set to expose the nationwide fraudulent election system. California is now example A in stolen elections and will be exposed as the lead-in to the main event. Stage about to be set to expose the stolen elections in 2020. There's a reason that Trump chose to walk out of live interview when the media shill demanded evidence of the stolen election in 2020. All focused on stolen elections, media now claiming again that it's another Trump conspiracy theory, another conspiracy theory that is about to be proven true. Just like Obama spying on the Trump campaign and the Russian collusion hoax to frame and remove Trump from office, everything is reaching a crescendo, and that is absolutely true. And once again, people are going to see that the deep state players, the fake news, they're the ones who push conspiracy. And the conspiracies that they say are happening are actually the truth. And it seems that U.S. Attorney Bill Esselstyn, he's letting everyone know that charges are coming, and they're going to be charging some people. So this is about 1 to 2 months away or so. So let's see how this all plays out, and let's see who they charge. This will be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is there are states now, like Florida and many others, that are now implementing voter ID on their own. Of course, it's not the blue states. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said, "Congratulations to the Ohio State Senate for passing Senate Joint Resolution 10, which would require voter ID in Ohio elections. Democrats fought hard against this, presumably so they can cheat. I'm now asking all of my Republican friends in the State House to also pass this now and put a constitutional amendment on the ballot so that the great people of Ohio can vote to enshrine voter ID in the state constitution. I will be watching and am strongly supportive of this resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT." And I think every single state should do this. And yes, we should also pass this in the Senate, which I do believe most likely it will. We'll be getting to that in just a sec. Now, just yesterday, Trump let everyone know that we need to get rid of the parliamentarian. Now, we need to remember that the parliamentarian, all the staffers, they're the ones who are running everything. When you look at the different agencies and all the people in the different agencies, they're running the criminal syndicate. When you look at the staffers in the Senate and the House, most of them are running everything. And the parliamentarian is a staffer, and this is who needs to be removed to break the chain of control. The Persistence put this out and said, "Did you know that the parliamentarian can be dismissed at any moment? The parliamentarian serves at the pleasure of the Senate Majority Leader. Thune has the sole authority to remove and replace the parliamentarian without a vote from the Senate. Fire Elizabeth McDonough." John Conrad V says, "The parliamentarian is a staffer. As I keep telling you, staffers run the Senate. Term limits won't stop them. Stopping Congress from trading won't stop them. Fundraising reform won't stop them. The only thing that can is putting them in the spotlight. Make them famous." Absolutely, because these people hide in the shadows. And now Trump is putting the spotlight on the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian must be removed. Just like all the people in different agencies, they must be removed because these are the people that the criminal syndicate put into place to maintain control. And this is why Trump has done it. Now, the other thing that is very, very interesting is that Trump has continually pushed the idea of putting the Save America Act onto every other bill, the reconciliation bill, you name it. And you could see that something now has changed because, again, Trump was able to see the board very clearly. And now we could see that something is happening. So Trump's priorities, as we know, is to get the Save America Act passed. And it may be a narrow step closer to passage in the Senate. What has just happened? It seems that Senate Republican Susan Collins, which we mentioned yesterday, had changed her mind. During the Senate's marathon vote-a-rama to advance GOP's $70 billion immigration enforcement package, Republicans tried twice to attach the Safeguarding American Voter Eligibility Save America Act to the massive bill. They failed both times, with a cohort of Republicans joining Senate Democrats to stymie the effort, which was destined to fail either way given that amendments from Senator Lindsey Graham and Mike Lee had to break through the filibuster. One of the defecting Senate Republicans is now indicating a willingness to bring the original Save America Act to the table. Then there's an obvious solution. Kill the 60-vote filibuster. Get this done. The time for baby steps is now past. So yes, if Collins flips, Thune has to remove the filibuster. I mean, the D's are going to do it anyhow. If they get control of the House and Senate, they will remove the filibuster and they'll undo everything that Trump has done. Yes, that will happen. And they will take control over the country. Now, do I think that's going to happen? No. Trump is mitigating the cheating. He's making sure that they can't cheat in this election. And he also has the Trump card in his back pocket, which is an executive order to make sure that everyone uses voter ID, paper ballots, one-day voting. Now, also, the Supreme Court is going to be ruling on one-day voting also. Now, they just saw evidence of how having more than one day creates cheating, fraud, you name it. Just like having the Federal Reserve just create currency out of thin air. It creates fraud in the system. So it's the same exact thing. So is Trump now clearing the board, getting the people lined up, getting prepared to pass this right before the midterms? Because all Thune has to do right now is remove the filibuster, and they have what they need. And then Trump can ride the executive order on top of a law. And it doesn't give the deep state players a chance to do something to get around it, to come up with an elaborate plan to cheat. Because again, they won't have time to do it. Now, even if the Save America Act doesn't pass, like we said, Trump still can use the executive order because he will have the investigation out of Fulton County. He'll have the investigation out of Maricopa County. And he can say it's a national security threat. But if the law is passed, we know within the Save America Act, most of the states cannot implement any of this stuff. They don't have enough time. But what they can do is demand that people come with their ID. They can say there's only paper ballots going to be used during this election. They can say it's one-day voting. It's that simple. And let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Trump, he decided to go to the Knicks game. And it seems that I think he's one of the first presidents that have done this. And what's very interesting is that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver was speaking on a panel during the game and said Trump was a fixture at Madison Square Garden. He had courtside seats. He was there all the time. He was at drafts. So he's a genuine New York Knicks fan. Now, the Knicks lost. But again, he is truly a Knicks fan. Remember, Kathy Hochul tried to trap him because he wanted Trump to give, I think it was like the 1996 champions, which they weren't the champions, but she was trying to trick him, and everyone called her out on it. Well, he didn't fall for it whatsoever. Now, the other thing you could see is that the couple of lefties that were in the game, they decided to boo him when he stood up and he saluted, and he was smiling when he was saluting. And again, you could see that the fake news, they ran with this, saying that, oh, look, everyone was booing at him. Everyone doesn't like him. But again, it was just a couple of people. Clint Essen put this out and said, the left-wing bots got their marching orders. In all the comment sections, they are frantically trying to establish the narrative that Trump received nothing but boos at MSG. The left are desperate to maintain their illusion. They cannot allow the people to see that Trump is not hated as they portray him to be. They cannot allow their brainwashed sheep to see something that doesn't align with their false reality. It's like a glitch in the Matrix. They are training to contain this breach. They will fail. Now, those same people, same basketball fans, and Andy No put this out, who booed President Trump at the NBA Finals game, rioted on the streets outside after the match. Democrats were angry at the increased security in Manhattan over the president's attendance, and they were rioting. So these people, once again, who are these people? Were they plants? It seems like maybe they were. But when you actually listen to the people, the majority of the people in Madison Square Garden, they chanted USA, USA, USA. So once again, their entire plan completely and utterly failed. And it seems that the White House once again sent us a message, and it's the words I love to say. Patriots are in control. Trump is saluting, and it says trust. And I do believe the Patriots are in control. And basically, the world now are seeing who the enemy truly is. And once you know who the enemy truly is, the people then know who to fight. Remember, the deep state players try to keep us divided. They try to keep us fighting each other. Trump is showing us who the enemy is every step of the way. And people are learning. People are understanding. And it's just going to get worse and worse for the deep state players. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.